Calling all authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook. But it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hey, my friends, welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Glad you're here. Really am. I really am. I am Robert A. Lane, your host, and this is a podcast that I feature talking about the audiobook world. I am an audiobook coach and producer, and I specialize in helping nonfiction authors turn their book into an audiobook. So if you are a nonfiction author, you've got a published book, maybe one that was published recently. If so, congratulations, that's great. Or maybe you have a book that you've written, or maybe you have several books that you've written that you have published a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Doesn't matter how long. The great thing is that you can turn your book into an audiobook and you can relaunch that book and bring it back to life. So that's another great thing of having a book that maybe you have in your archives that you published before. Let's resurrect it, right? Bring it back to life. By the way, we are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. If you'd like to participate and you have questions about what we're going to be talking about today, which is about the two must-haves for audiobook narration. We're going to dive into that in just a second. You're more than welcome to join the show. And if you're catching the live broadcast, which I hope you are, then by all means, you can comment on the chat, or you can always give us a call at, what's the number? It's 866-451-1451. That's the number to call into the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Again, that's 866-451-1451. We'd love to chat about your book and any questions you have about the audiobook world. And of course, as an audiobook coach and producer, I do have, and I teach an audiobook coaching program that is called Your Book, Your Voice, where I help nonfiction authors like yourself go through the steps in the process of creating your audiobook that you narrate. Because again, I'm a big advocate that all nonfiction authors need to narrate their own audiobook. So if you are a nonfiction author, you have a book that's out there that's published, you are the one person who needs to narrate that audiobook because it's your story. You want it to be heard the way you intended it to be heard. No one can tell your story better than you. Not another narrator, no matter how great they are, because again, another narrator is going to give their interpretation of your story. And it may not be the way that you would have told it. So it's really important for you to tell your story the way you want it to be heard. And of course, AI is cutting corners. It's not a real voice. It is not you. It's not a representation of you. It is a misrepresentation of who you are as an author, as your author brand. So it's important that, again, don't cut corners. You can narrate your own audiobook. You have what it takes to narrate your own audiobook, whether you have speaking experience or not. You still can do it no matter what. And that's what I do as an audiobook coach and producer. If you ever thought about narrating your own audiobook, if you have questions about it, if you'd like to find out more information on what it takes, because I'm going to be talking about the audiobook process in just a second here. But if you'd like to book a call with me, I'd love to speak with you, tell you more about the audiobook coaching program. We have a graphic up on the screen that you can check out that has the link, which is a bit.ly link. It's bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. That's my personal calendar. I love to chat with you, tell you more about the audiobook coaching program, talk about your goals and what you want to do with your audiobook. And if it resonates with you and you want to enroll, perfect, because in 6 weeks, you can have your audiobook recorded, narrated by you, and all ready for publication on Audible, Amazon, and Apple Books, and any other distribution platform that you like to be on. So book your call today. Again, that link, so those of you who are hearing the replay, if it's audio only, it's this link, bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. All right. And also one more thing that I do want to share with you, of course, is that we do have an audiobook narration reference guide that is a free download. Please grab a copy. You can grab that at bit.ly. I like those bit.ly links because it shortens up the the web address. bit.ly/narration reference guide is what you can go to grab your free audiobook narration guide. And of course, all this is on my website at robertlanecoaching.com. All right, so just wanted to throw that out there. Grab your free copy. It's my gift to you just for joining and enjoying the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Now, the topic today is two must-haves. Two must-haves for audiobook narration. There are two very crucial points, very crucial components that you need to do a great audiobook narration. All right, so what are they? I'm going to tell you what they are, and then as we go along with the podcast, we'll dive into specifics on each of these. And the first one is practical. Okay, practical. The second is intangibles. Those are the two must-haves that you have to have for a great, compelling audiobook that you, as the author, will narrate. All right, so practical means the physical and practical aspects of creating your audiobook. We're going to dive into that as we go along. The second being intangibles. And what are intangibles? Intangibles are the things that you don't necessarily physically touch, but you can emotionally feel. Those intangibles are your emotion. Those intangibles are your personality, your sense of humor, your pacing. The intangibles are your energy level. And these are things that you need to be consistent from opening credits to closing credits. You have to be consistent with those intangibles. And the intangibles are so important because that's what makes a great audiobook. There's the mediocre, boring, sounds robotic, monotone type audiobooks that will put you to sleep. That's not what you want to do. You want to bring in those intangibles. Those intangibles are when you bring your emotion and energy into it. That's what brings that audiobook to life. And that's what, of course, puts your unique stamp on that. So before we really dive into the two must-haves, the practical aspects and the intangible aspects, let's talk about what it takes to create an audiobook. Because a lot of people, a lot of authors may not realize the process that it takes to create a great audiobook. So let's go over some of the basics. I'll give you an overview of what you need to do. Now, in my audiobook coaching program, I do provide the professional equipment for all the authors who are enrolled in the program to set up their own recording space. So if you are setting up your own recording space, as you should, if you are narrating your own audiobook, you do have to have great equipment. And don't skimp on that, right? Remember, we're not cutting corners. Cutting corners is not a good thing. You got to be professional because, look, you wrote a book. You published a book. You have a great nonfiction book that's out there. Your heart and soul went into creating that book. And the product, of course, you are the author brand, and your product being your ebook or your paperback or your hardcover. You want to, again, add that audiobook to your arsenal of great formats that you have to give your followers and your readers and now listeners a choice on how they want to enjoy your book. And when you do narrate your own audiobook, you are putting your unique stamp, your unique style, which is already in your written word, right? Your voice is already in your written word. You're just bringing it to life with your own voice, and you're putting that unique stamp on it. And the good thing about narrating your audiobook is that it's your voice and you're putting your unique style and stamp, which makes you stand out in the crowd. So if you're writing a book, if it's a memoir, or if it's, especially if you're a coach or a teacher or an educator or an entrepreneur and you have a coaching system or some kind of program or something that you're promoting as an author, but also as a coach, putting your unique style of how you teach is crucial because that's what allows you to stand out in the crowd. All right. So now let's just go over the actual setup and recording process, because that's the first phase, of course. Setting up your own recording space, of course, is something that you need to do. And if you're recording it on your own, and make sure you find a nice, comfortable space to do it in. But the process of recording an audiobook is done like this. Let me grab my book, for example. When I published my book, Lights, Action, You, this is a book that I wrote about when I started Robert Lane Coaching, I started it as a career coach / life coach and took experiences from my 30 plus years of working in the entertainment business and shared some of those stories and experiences in this book. But with each story, I give you a tool or a technique or a life lesson for you to be able to utilize and incorporate in your own life, whether in business, for your job, or even personal. These techniques are great either or, right? So that was the catalyst for me writing this book, and of course turning it into an audiobook, being an audio guy as well, because that's what I do. Love doing that, and I had to create the audiobook. So when you are recording your audiobook, every piece of your book, every section of your book is a separate audio file that you record. So for example, in this book, I have 14 chapters. So that's 14 separate audio files right there. Then you have your front matter, your back matter. So opening credits, closing credits. You have an introduction. Maybe you have a foreword. Maybe you have a prologue or an epilogue or acknowledgments or a dedication page. All these different sections of your book are all separate audio files. I had a book that I recently worked on that had 58 chapters. So that was 58 audio files that the author had to record. But you know what? It sounds daunting, but honestly, it really isn't, because when you are doing it methodically and you have somebody to help guide you through the process, which is why I love doing what I do as an audiobook coach and producer, that it does make the process easier. So don't let that be a daunting thing. Don't go, oh my gosh, I have 20, 30 chapters, 40 chapters. My book is, oh, I don't know if I can do this. You can. You really can. And you do have what it takes, okay? So each section of your book is a separate audio file. So when you record, and I advise authors when they are in the program, just do it in linear fashion. Do it in order. Just makes it so much easier for you to get into your zone. And it really helps with the flow of your audiobook narration when you do it in linear fashion. So when you, again, are recording your audiobook, it is done in each section as a separate audio file. Okay. Now, as you record, the next phase is that you have to have your audio edited and cleaned up. And most importantly, it needs to meet the exact specifications for publication. And I've seen this happen, and I've helped other authors who have come to me and say, hey, I recorded my audiobook, I uploaded it to Audible or Amazon and Apple, and it got rejected. It got rejected. They said, no, it doesn't meet our specifications, and I don't know what to do. And these are the authors, some of them even recorded at a recording studio, a professional recording studio, yet the files that they got back from the studio did not meet the exact specs, and guess what? It got rejected. That's a horrible thing. However, luckily I was able to help them out, got their audio files, and was able to tweak them to make sure that they do meet the exact specifications for publication, and everything worked out okay. So that's good. So that there is a happy ending to this story. But you do have to make sure that your audio files are exactly what the distribution platform needs them to be from a technical standpoint, or they will get rejected. So remember, when you record your audiobook, there is post-production that is involved after you record, aside from just cleaning them up and making sure that everything sounds good. But they do need to meet those exact specifications. And I know there are other companies out there who say, yeah, we'll clean your files, we'll help you do your audiobook, but they don't coach you on how to do it, correctly. And, some methods that they utilize are just not that great. Some companies will just run it through some restoration program or an app or something, go, okay, it's all clean, but that's not good enough. And I'm going to dive into that just a little bit because that does lead into the first of the two must-haves, which is the practical aspect. But I do want to dive into the importance of making sure your audio files are to spec. You're listening to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back, and we're going to dive into, again, the first of the must-haves, which is the practical aspects of getting your audiobook done. We're streaming live, by the way, on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBN Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hey, my friends, welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. If you would like to participate in the show, if you have any questions about the audiobook world, the audiobook process, what it takes to record, I'd love to hear from you. You can always put some comments in the chat, or you can give us a call at 866-451-1451 is the number to call in if you are catching the live stream. And you are right now. Give us a call, 866-451-1451 is the number to call to participate in the show. We'd love to hear from you. We are talking about the two must-haves for audiobook narration. The one thing that I did want to just wrap up before we took a break, I'm talking about the post-production aspect of your audiobook. And it is crucial to make sure that when you're having your audiobook edited after you record it, make sure it's somebody who knows what they're doing. Make sure that it is a professional who understands not only how to edit, but also to make sure that your files are to the exact specifications. Now, I mentioned there are some companies out there that will just run your audiobook files through some program and say, okay, they're all clean. But that honestly is not good enough. When I do my editing, which I provide for my clients, for any authors that go through my audiobook coaching program, I listen to everything in real time with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, laser focused on everything that's going on. I'm listening to what's happening not only during your narration, but between words, between sentences, in the silence, in the background, in the ambience, listening for mouth noises, listening for slurred words, or maybe a mispronunciation. Things that if you run it through some program and think it's going to be all clean and fine, it's going to miss. Those things are going to be missed. You have to have somebody who's diligent and who will listen to it in real time to make sure your audiobook is fantastic, because you deserve that. You deserve the best, and you deserve to have your audiobook being the most incredible, high quality audiobook that you can possibly create. And whoever is helping you with that needs to be on top of their game. So it's really, really important. All right, so let's dive into the must-haves number one, which is the practical aspects of audiobooks. All right. So obviously, you're setting up your recording space. Now, remember, you are an author. This is your brand. All right. You are an author brand. So embrace the fact that you are an entrepreneur. You've published a book. You're an entrepreneur. Love it. Embrace it. Okay. And having an audiobook is crucial because, again, you're expanding yourself into a market that may not have even discovered you yet, but they will now. And not only that, you've just added another format of your book that people can listen to your book and now go and check out your other books if you have other books, or they will check out your ebook, your paperback, and your hardcover. So you have just created additional revenue streams by creating your audiobook. Yes, that's another revenue stream, but now people will actually go and purchase the other versions of your book. I see it happen all the time. I do it too. Like I'll listen to an audiobook and I really enjoy it, but then I'll purchase the paperback because I like to highlight as I listen and go, oh, that's a great quote or a great concept or whatever it is. And I'll highlight it because I love doing that. And a lot of people do that. Another thing to keep in mind is that people ask for audiobooks by brand name, meaning someone will say, hey, can I get your book on Audible? Can I get your book on Apple? I can just go to Amazon and grab your book, right? They don't even say, hey, do you have an audiobook? It used to be that way, but more and more people are now just saying, hey, are you on Audible? So it's important, again, that you are offering your book in audiobook form, and you really do need to be on the AAA, in which is Audible, Amazon, and Apple. Those are the three distribution platforms you absolutely need to be on because that's mostly where the general public goes. And there are obviously 40 plus more distribution platforms all over the world. And if that works for you and you need to be on those, you definitely can do that. But again, I've just found being in the business that most people go to Audible to find their audiobooks and purchase their audiobooks. So that is definitely, they have a niche in the market, right? They have a niche in the market. So just keep that in mind. Now, setting up your recording space, that's one of the must-haves in regards to practical. When you are setting up your own recording space, pick a space that doesn't sound like you're in a big cathedral or in a bathroom, right? You want to keep the echo and the ambience and the sound bouncing off walls. You want to keep that to a minimum. So if you have an office or a bedroom, I've had authors who've set up their recording space in their walk-in closet because they're like, hey, I'm comfortable here. It absorbs sound. This is great. This works for me. Whatever works for you. Just make sure it's a comfortable space for you, okay? You want to be comfortable. So set up your recording space. And as I mentioned earlier, don't skimp on quality of your microphone, on the quality of your headphones. You need great equipment, all right? You have to have great equipment. Don't skimp on that. My advice, all right? If you are working with me in my audiobook coaching program, I provide the professional equipment for you, so you don't even have to worry about that. But okay, so now you're setting up your recording space. You're in a comfortable space. Make sure it's, again, whether you do it standing, some people like to stand and record. Some people like to sit down and record. And remember, when you are doing your audiobook narration, you're not using your paperback or your hardcover. You need the digital version of your book because you're going to hear all those page turns, and you don't want that in your audiobook narration. That's a distraction. And speaking of distractions, that's another part of the practical aspect, the number one of the must-haves to do a great audiobook narration, and that is distractions. Eliminate them, okay? Get rid of distractions, which means when you set up your recording space, and it's a nice, comfortable space, don't have your phone with you, don't have anything around that will distract you from the job at hand, because you want to be focused. You want to be in the present moment. You want to get into your zone so you do a great narration. And you don't want your phone buzzing or pinging or ringing or doing anything that can cause a distraction. And I've had authors with their phones next to them while they're recording. Even I'm like, come on, no, put it away. Put it in another room because the microphone's going to pick it up. It just is. And I've had authors where I'm hearing the phone ping, and then it's like, okay, you need to redo this paragraph because your phone went off, and there's no way to edit that out of your audiobook. So you're gonna have to redo that. So again, distractions. Well, what also falls into that category is if let's say you're setting up in your home office or in a bedroom or wherever you're setting up, and you have your husband, your wife, your significant other, maybe you have kids, pets, right? Animals. Sorry, they cannot be in your room and in your recording space because their movements are going to be picked up by the microphone. Again, if you want to get into your zone and record, block off at least an hour, maybe 2 hours a time. If you can do it every day, great. If you can do it every other day, great. Whatever it is, create a schedule for you that works best for you, but stick to that schedule. And this is your recording time. And make that time a non-negotiable time, okay? Meaning that you tell people, hey, I'm recording, from 6 to 8 p.m. Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturday, let's say. Okay, you do 4 days a week. You're recording on your audiobook. This is a non-negotiable time. Don't disturb me. If anything comes up, that's going to have to work around this schedule. Lock it down, because you have to be disciplined, and it makes sense. You were disciplined when you wrote your book. Same discipline applies when you're doing your audiobook. Don't drag it out. It doesn't take 6 months or 6 years to record your audiobook. You can do it in 6 weeks. You really can. So just be focused, non-negotiable time. Lock that down. And again, tell people, hey, I'm recording. Please don't disturb me during this time. Okay. All right. So that's really important. Another aspect of the practical must-have is being aware. Awareness is a beautiful thing. Okay. Awareness encompasses what's going on around you. What are the sounds that are happening around you while you're recording, while you're setting your audiobook recording space, getting it all set up? Is it noisy? Do you hear a lot of traffic outside? Maybe you need to find a better space. Find a space that's as quiet as possible. And again, be aware of your surroundings. If you hear a dog bark, if you hear a plane fly by, if there's a big truck that rumbles that drives by, or maybe the gardener across the street fires up the leaf blower, hey, it happens. And if it does, don't worry about it. Don't get frustrated. Don't get all mad. I know it can be frustrating, especially when you're in your zone. Just stop, take a moment, let the sound go by, and then just go back to recording. But you do need to be aware of your surroundings. So while you're recording, if you hear something or something distracts you, if you hear a noise, I guarantee you the microphone is going to pick it up. And if it picks it up, you're going to have to redo that sentence that you were recording, because you don't want those ambient sounds getting into your recording. So again, awareness, just be aware. The other aspect of awareness is your own voice, which also leads to another practical point of the must-have, and that is hydration and keeping yourself healthy. You need to drink water. You need to be hydrated, because when your mouth is dry, you're going to get a lot of mouth noise. And that can be very distracting. If you hear a lot of lip smacks and ticks and cracks and whatever else there is, that is going to be distracting. Now, what I provide the authors who go through my audiobook coaching program, of course, is I listen for these things. And if I can remove a mouth noise, I'm going to edit it out of there. I'm going to clean it up the best that I can possibly do it. And I like doing it manually in real time, so I can really listen to what's going on. And again, if there's a word that's slurred or mispronounced or doesn't sound quite right, or maybe the pacing is off a little bit, maybe you have a big pause, or maybe you rushed a sentence, I could fix that. And that's what we do in the audio post-production portion of creating your audiobook. So that's why it's really important that your audio editor is listening to everything in real time, so that you can catch these subtleties and make sure that your audiobook is the best that it can possibly be. So hydration is important. Body posture is important, whether you are sitting at a desk and you're recording, or maybe you stand up. I mean, when I did my audiobook, I stood up. I had my mic, I was standing. For me, it's an energy thing. I feel more grounded. I like having my feet flat on the ground, bare feet or in socks, and just scrunching on the carpet so I can really ground myself. And then I get into my zone and I do my narration. All right. So body posture is important because, again, just like with a singer, you need to be able to take in that air, make your delivery. When you're doing your narration, you're delivering your voice just like a singer does. And same principle is that you want to be able to have good posture so you can breathe and be able to enunciate and have the energy and everything that you need to get across the concepts and the story that you're telling for your audiobook. All right. Now let's talk about mic placement. I'm going to pull this over here. So for those of you who are seeing the video portion of the podcast, I've just pulled in a microphone so you can see where mic placement is important. Now, if you're standing in front of your mic, okay, and you're talking directly into your mic, more than likely you're going to be popping that mic with plosives. And plosives are basically consonants that can pop a mic. So strong consonants like B, P, right? P, B, K. Those hard consonants can pop a mic. And you don't want to do that because it'll peak it and make that word distorted, which you don't want. And it can be also very distracting for the listener to hear you popping your P's. So something that I suggest for authors to do is that you angle your mic to the side. So again, those of you who are watching, you can see this. And I'm about, let's see, we're looking at about, it's at about an inch or two, not more than 2 inches away from the microphone. And I'm talking across the mic, not into the mic, but across the mic because I have it angled. So it's not going to pop when I say a P or a K or a B or any of those hard consonants, but it will still pick up my voice. It'll still pick it up well. It'll sound great. And you are alleviating some of these issues that happen when you record. So mic placement is really important. And when you're listening, and you should be listening in headphones, be very, again, we're getting back to that awareness, be very aware of how it sounds. What is the level like? And on the recording device that you're using to record your audiobook, watch those levels. Say a couple of sentences and watch those levels. See where your mic placement is. See how far away you are with your microphone. Watch those levels. When it sounds good and it looks good, lock that down in your brain. All right? It's because that's how you want to be consistent with your levels. And the other thing that we're going to dive into will be the intangible aspects, which we're going to get into. We do have to take another quick break, but I just wanted to, again, just hit home that on the practical aspect, consistency is key with your levels. So make sure that whatever you have your setup, lock it down, don't change it, and have it the same way for the entire duration of recording your audiobook because you don't want that to change. Consistency is key. All right, this is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane with Robert Lane Coaching. You can find out more about what I do as an audiobook coach at robertlanecoaching.com. We're going to dive into the must-haves number 2, which is about intangibles. And this is one of my favorite things. So don't go away. We are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
And welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. I am an audiobook coach and producer. We specialize in helping nonfiction authors like yourself, if you are one, hopefully you are, in narrating your own audiobook. And today we're talking about the two must-haves to do a great audiobook narration. We just finished talking about must-have number one, which is about the practical aspects of doing a great narration. Before we get into the intangibles, just a couple of things that I want to share with you. Again, I shared at the top of the show, and that is, first of all, if you are a nonfiction author and you've even toyed with the idea of turning your book into an audiobook and narrating your own audiobook, I would love to speak with you. So we're going to put up a graphic that's going to show the link to my personal calendar where you can book a call and let's just chat. Let's chat about your book and the process of what it takes to do an audiobook. And I'll give you more details about the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program. And if it resonates with you, we'll get you enrolled. The program is 6 weeks. You can have your audiobook recorded, narrated, and ready for publication on Audible, Amazon, and Apple, the AAA, by the end of the 6-week program. It's a great thing. So by all means, book a call. You can do that at bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. That is the link. bit.ly/audiobook onboarding to book your call. Love to hear from you. Again, you can always go to robertlanecoaching.com. Everything is up there. Plenty of places to click that book a call button. Matter of fact, on the website, you can also hear samples of other authors who've gone through the program and did a fantastic job. And these authors aren't professional speakers, but they did such a great job in narrating their audiobook. And you can hear some clips on the website. So again, that's at robertlanecoaching.com. So check it out. I also have an audiobook narration reference guide. You can go to the website as well. It's right up there on the home screen. Just click and download your free guide. It's my gift to you to help you do a great audiobook narration. All right, we're going to talk about the second must-have that you have to do a great audiobook narration, and that is the intangibles. The intangibles are the things that you can't necessarily physically touch, but you emotionally feel. And this is a really important category because that is what takes an audiobook from just being mediocre to being fan-frickin-tastic. You want to have a great audiobook. You want to keep your audience engaged and just on the edge of their seat when they hear you tell your story. So those intangibles are the things that make the world of difference in your audiobook. So the first thing, of course, is you need to be grounded. You need to be focused. You need to be in the present moment. You need to not be worrying about the past or the future or thinking about anything else except the job at hand. And the job at hand is just doing a great narration. Just do a great narration. Get into your zone. Be focused. That's what it's all about, okay? You got to be focused and you got to be in the present mind because you cannot hit that record button unless you are in your zone. And the reason why is that we're talking about those intangibles. People will be listening to your audiobook, and if you're not in your zone, and if you're just kind of reading it and it sounds reedy, they're going to pick up on your energy. They're going to pick up on that emotion. They're going to say, I don't know, there's something about this audiobook that's it's not doing it for me. Well, we don't want that to happen, right? We want you to be in your zone. So be in the present mind, being focused and in the present moment makes all the difference in the world. Now, you got to be grounded, of course. The other thing, and this is something that I talk with a lot of authors about, and this is a fairly common thing, which is why I do a lot of mindset work with the authors through the process of recording their audiobook, because confidence is a very important thing. And lack of confidence is something that I experience with a lot of authors. And especially with authors who maybe they haven't spoken in public, or maybe putting a microphone in front of them makes them nervous. And that's understandable. But again, to do a great audiobook narration, you have to be confident. You have to be confident in your voice. You have to be confident in your ability to deliver a great narration. And you have to love your voice. You gotta love your voice. You gotta love this wonderful sound that comes out of your body, because that's part of who you are. Your author brand is everything that encompasses who you are, how you were brought up, how you are, your sense of humor, how your personality is, your belief systems, your habits. All those things are factors that create who you are, because that's what makes you unique. And your voice is a huge factor. Your voice is a crucial component on presenting and preserving your author brand, because that's who you are. This is how you sound. And remember, your voice is already in your written word. It's already there. So you're just bringing it to life by speaking in your own voice. So love your voice. Appreciate the sound that comes out of your body. I hated my voice when I first heard it. Almost every person I've spoken to or every author who's gone through the audiobook coaching program has told me, oh man, I hate my voice. Don't hate your voice. Love your voice. Your voice is a wonderful thing. It doesn't matter whether you are, from another country, or you're from the deep South, or you're from New York, or you're from LA, or you're from Minnesota, or Canada. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because that's part of who you are. And that's what makes you unique, because you want to stand out, and you will stand out. And the only way you can stand out is by being your true, authentic self. And that is a key intangible. Number 2 of the must-haves to do a great audiobook narration, those intangibles, is being your true, authentic self. You don't need to sound like somebody else. You don't need to try to act like somebody else. You don't have to have radio DJ voice. You just need to have your voice, because that's who you are. No one can replicate you. And that is a really great thing, because that allows you to, again, stand out in the crowd. Now, as an author brand, you are the CEO of you. One of my infamous catchphrases, you are the CEO of you. So the decisions that you make for your author brand are crucial. And the buck stops with you, so make great decisions. And one of the greatest decisions you can make, of course, is narrating your own audiobook, because you do have what it takes to do a fantastic job. But you have to have confidence, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your voice, because your voice is a great tool. It is a great way of expressing yourself, and nobody can do it better than you, because that's who you are. That's who you are. That's why I say having another narrator, no matter how great they are, they can be technically great, but they don't have your emotion. They don't have your experience. For example, again, I just worked on a book. As a matter of fact, she was even a guest on the podcast not too long ago. But she talked about her experience of being in a religious cult. Is another narrator going to be able to express the emotion? No, of course not, because that other narrator just didn't experience it the way the author did. That's the key factor. No one can experience and express your story better than you, because it's your story. All right? That's why the intangibles are so important. And that's why another narrator isn't going to be able to express it the way that you would express it. So you have what it takes. Okay, so believe in yourself, have confidence, love your voice. Another thing that is really important that can help you in regards to your narration is ask yourself this question: who am I talking to? Who am I telling my story to? Now, a lot of times I'll get answers like, oh, well, my genre is about this, or I'm talking about, maybe it was religious cults, or I'm talking about something else. That's too broad. You need to narrow it down. When I ask authors who go through my program, I say, tell me, who are you talking to? But I want a specific person. Who specifically are you telling your story to? Because that makes a huge difference when it comes to your narration. When you're telling your story to, maybe it's your best friend, or maybe it's your significant other, or maybe it's a coworker or a family member or somebody that you're close to, and you approach it like, "Hey, I got this great story. Let's go to the local coffee house and sit down, and I got to tell you this thing. This is a great story." That's the mental space that you need to be in when you do your narration. You're talking to your best friend. You're talking to someone you feel comfortable with. That's who you're telling your story to. And it makes a world of difference. And that subtle mind shift will come out in your narration. And I talked about these intangibles. These are things that people feel, emotionally feel. And a listener will be able to pick up on whether you're being authentic or not, on whether you are trying to be a poser or not. They can pick up on that. We do. Just like when you listen to YouTube videos and they have these videos with these awful AI voices, and you could tell there's no life in it. There's no soul in it. And that's one thing that a computer generated voice can never replicate is your soul. Your heart and soul is in your story. The other intangible that you need to do a great audiobook narration is always being tapped into the core reason of why you wrote your book in the first place. Why is it so important for you to tell your story? Why were you so compelled to write this down and get it published for the world to read? That core reason is what you need to tap into when you do your narration, because that's going to come through. You are telling your story. And again, no one can tell your story better than you, the way you express it, and it will just draw people in. Matter of fact, just a quick little story. As I listen to authors record their audiobook, they send me their files, and I do all the editing for them, of course. And when I do the final quality control pass, because I really, again, pay very close attention to everything that the author does. When I listen to that, I get sucked into their story every time. And what that tells me, and should tell you as the author, is that you did your job. I listen to this stuff all the time, yet I get so engrossed and engaged and compelled by the story that I am working on for that author. That means you did a great job. That means you nailed those intangibles. And that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. We're going to do a quick summary about the two must-haves, which is practical and intangibles. When we come back, we're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. We'll be back for our last segment. Don't go away.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network. Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Hey, my friends, how are you? We are back on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. Our topic today is, of course, the 2 must-haves for a great audiobook narration. And just to summarize what we've been discussing today, first of all, of course, there are the practical aspects of doing a great narration, and that includes how you set up your recording space, being aware of your surroundings, no distractions, right? No distractions. Mic placement, levels, being consistent, body posture. I mentioned, I think, hydration. If you are feeling fatigued when you're recording your audiobook, then stop, take a break, rejuvenate, then go back, okay? Listen to your body, listen to your voice. Make sure, as I said, no distractions. Put that phone away. Tell people you're recording. Make sure that you have specific times that you're working on your audiobook. Non-negotiable times, okay? Non-negotiable. Those are your times you're going to work on your book, and be focused and diligent. Hold yourself accountable, all right? And again, like I said, awareness of your environment. If you hear a sound or a noise or a truck or a leaf blower or somebody yelling or a dog barking or whatever it is, if you hear it, your mic's going to pick up on it. So just pause, wait for the sound to go by, continue on. All right. So that's must-have number 1. Must-have number 2, the intangibles. That's what makes a great audiobook. Tapping into your emotion, tapping into the energy, being consistent from opening credits to closing credits, having that energy there, telling your story. Because remember, just like someone reads your book, the same thing when they listen to your book. You're going to have story arcs, and there's a flow to it, and you want to keep that flow. You want to keep your listener on the edge of their seat, engaged in the story that you're telling, whether it's a memoir or even a coaching program. If you're a coach, people will want to listen because they are engaged on how you tell your story. And that is the key point to your intangible. Your author brand is who you are, and you want to preserve the integrity of your author brand. So to do that, you got to be your true, authentic self. Love your voice, believe in your voice, trust you have what it takes to do a great narration, because you do, and build that confidence. Don't shy away from, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Oh, I'm afraid to talk on a microphone. You have to be confident and believe in yourself. Your book is great. You had confidence when you wrote your book. That same confidence applies when you do your audiobook narration. And always tap into the core reason of why you wrote your book in the first place, because that comes through in your narration. Again, it's that emotion, those things you don't physically touch, but you emotionally feel. All right. If you want to find out more about the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program that I teach, I'd love to speak with you. By all means, book a call with me. It's really simple. You can go to robertlanecoaching.com. There's the website there has all the buttons there. We're also putting a graphic on the screen for you to check out. And by all means, book a call. bit.ly/audiobook onboarding is the link. Bit.ly. It's a bit.ly link. bit.ly/audiobook onboarding. Book your call. That is my personal calendar. I'd love to talk with you about your book, what you like to do with your audiobook, and tell you how you can narrate your own audiobook. I provide the equipment for you and guide you every step of the way, from setup and preparation to narration to publication. And by the end of the 6-week program, your book will be ready for publication on Audible, Amazon, and Apple, and of course, any other distribution platforms that you want to be on. So book your call. I would love to speak with you. And yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. Make a great decision for your author brand. Turn your book into an audiobook. Remember, the audiobook world continues to grow and expand. People go for audiobooks first before they even go for the other formats of the ebook, paperback, and hardcover. You got to have an audiobook, and you definitely need to narrate it in your own voice, especially as a nonfiction author. And of course, on the website, I got the links to not only booking a call, but you can grab your free audiobook narration reference guide. It's up there, which I put a lot of tools and techniques and some of those practical things and intangible things that we've discussed about, those two must-haves, practical and intangible, are part of that narration reference guide. So download it. A lot of the things that I've spoken about today are in that guide. So grab yourself a copy of that. Again, we have another graphic on the screen. You can see the link there. It's another bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/narration reference guide. bit.ly/narration reference guide. All right. All right, my friends, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you ever have any questions about the audiobook world, if you want to find out more about the audiobook coaching program, just book a call with me. Go to my website at robertlanecoaching.com. Everything is there for you to check out, okay? And one last thing, I love giving this assignment because it's just a beautiful thing to do, and that is when you are out and about in the world, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, give them a compliment. It takes 5 or 10 seconds out of your day. But that little gesture of kindness can make the world of difference in somebody's life. And you want to be a life changer. And we definitely can use a lot more positivity in the world. And you can be the person to spread it. So be good humans, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Robert A. Lane. Again, my business is Robert Lane Coaching. RobertLaneCoaching.com has all the information about the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program. Again, appreciate you. Be good humans. That's all I can tell you. We will talk to you next week on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. We are streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. We'll talk to you again in a week. Take care.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.